Welcome to Hong Kong Brief. The content of the briefing includes: Singapore central banker sees private cryptocurrencies failing. The human cost of China's property crisis. SenseTime shares drop 10% after critical Grizzly research report. Hong Kong stocks slide on earnings watch as small caps in Beijing slumps 5%. Dollar set for worst month in a year, yields hold, markets wrap. Singapore central banker sees private cryptocurrencies failing. Bloomberg. According to Singapore's central bank chief, private cryptocurrencies that fail the tests of financial services will eventually exit the monetary scene, leaving a future monetary system made up of central bank digital currencies, tokenized bank liabilities, and well-regulated stablecoins. Private digital coins have miserably failed the test of money because they can't keep value, said Ravi Menon. He also mentioned that people buy and sell these cryptocurrencies to make a quick profit, rather than keeping them as a store of value. On the same panel, the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India mentioned that central bank digital currencies need to meet unmet user needs and be implemented using accessible technology and infrastructure. The human cost of China's property crisis. Financial Times. The impact of China's ongoing property crisis is being felt by individuals across the country, with many uncertain about the fate of their investments. Evergrande's default in 2021, along with the troubles faced by other developers, has sent shockwaves through China's property sector, which is a key component of the country's economy and household wealth. While residential property prices in China have seen significant growth in recent years, they fell by 5% between Q3 2021 and Q1 2022. The crisis has left many buyers unable to move into their new homes and struggling to recover their deposits. Protests have taken place at local government offices and developer sales offices, highlighting the frustration and anger of those affected. The crisis has also impacted the ability of young Chinese people to buy property, with new rules governing house purchases making it more difficult to secure a new apartment. As a result, many are choosing to wait until house prices fall further, while sellers are also hesitant to sell in the current market. SenseTime shares drop 10% after critical Grizzly research report. Bloomberg. SenseTime Group Incorporated, a Shanghai-based AI software developer, saw its shares drop after short seller Grizzly Research released a report alleging that the company had inflated its revenue and that its core business was unprofitable. SenseTime, which is known for its computer vision technology, was among the first Chinese tech firms to receive government approvals to launch its own ChatGPT-like services. The company was blacklisted by the U.S. government in 2019, limiting its access to capital and U.S. tech components. Alibaba and SoftBank have been reducing their stakes in SenseTime in recent months. Hong Kong stocks slide on earnings watch as small caps in Beijing slumps 5%. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong stocks have fallen to a two-week low as concerns rise that corporate earnings will disappoint investors amid China's economic slowdown and property market slump. Reports this week may show that Chinese manufacturing contracted again in November. The Hang Seng Index fell 0.2% to 17,486.98 on Monday morning. Singapore property playground for rich foreigners hits rough patch. Nikkei Asia. Singapore's luxury real estate market in Sentosa Cove is facing scrutiny as a potential conduit for money laundering. Sentosa Cove is the only place in Singapore where foreigners can buy landed houses, and it has become an attractive location for wealthy individuals looking to park their wealth. However, a recent police bust that resulted in the arrest of 10 foreigners suspected of money laundering has shed light on the potential risks associated with owning property in Sentosa Cove. Authorities have frozen more than SGD 2.8 billion, $2.08 billion worth of assets, including 152 properties and 62 vehicles belonging to the suspects. The bust has further eroded sentiment in the luxury home market, which has already been impacted by increased taxes on foreign buyers. The number of transactions in the ultra-luxury segment has slowed, and experts predict that demand for Sentosa Cove housing will continue to decline in the coming months. Why US-China thaw after Biden-Xi summit is bad news for Japan. South China Morning Post. The recent meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping in San Francisco did not represent a thawing of relations between the two countries, but rather a public show of cordiality, according to Terry Su, president of Lulu Derivation Data. Although the two leaders refused to budge on major issues, Su argues that their willingness to hold the meeting itself could help ensure that the competition and confrontation between the two countries does not escalate into conflict. However, this could be disappointing to other countries, particularly Japan, which has been hoping to regain full independence from the US and has viewed the US-China rivalry as an opportunity to do so. Hong Kong October home prices dropped to lowest since March 2017. Yahoo! Hong Kong's private home prices fell for the sixth consecutive month in October, reaching their lowest level since March 2017, according to government data. Home prices dropped 2.2% month-on-month in October, after a revised 2.4% drop in September. Realtors predict that prices will fall about 5% for the full year. This photographer uncovers Hong Kong's creatures of the night. CNN. Hong Kong-based wildlife photographer Lawrence Hilton is on a mission to promote conservation through his artistic approach to nature photography. Hilton's photographs capture the diverse wildlife species that inhabit Hong Kong, a city with one of the highest population densities in the world. Many of the creatures he photographs emerge at night, and Hilton goes on nocturnal safaris multiple times a week to find and photograph them. He hopes that his photographs will help people understand that nature is not as scary as it may seem and that animals deserve the right to live alongside humans. Broadcom starts onboarding VMware workers in China after Beijing's approval. South China Morning Post. U.S. semiconductor company Broadcom has started merging with VMware following regulatory clearance from China for its $69 billion acquisition. VMware CEO Raghu Raghuram informed employees of the development in an internal letter, saying the process had been uncertain and stressful. Broadcom will now begin employee communications and has started refurbishing offices with its own branding. Broadcom's Beijing office had its logos replaced on Monday morning. The 1,000 employees in China are awaiting clarity on their future at the company after Raghuram hinted that some may be subject to job changes. China's property lifeline exposes banks to big losses, job cuts. Bloomberg. China's banks, already burdened by soaring bad loans and record low net interest margins, may soon be asked to provide unsecured loans to struggling property developers. Industrial and Commercial Bank of China and other major banks may be required to set aside an additional $89 billion for bad real estate debt. According to Bloomberg Intelligence, this will account for 21% of estimated pre-provision profits in 2024. As a result, banks are weighing their options, including lowering growth targets and cutting jobs. China's banks are caught between the demands of providing national service by supporting the property sector and distressed local governments, and their obligation to run a sound business. Regulators are currently working on a list of firms eligible for bank support and are considering a plan for lenders to offer unsecured loans to developers for the first time. This comes on top of a recent order for banks to roll over local government debt at favorable terms. Asian stocks inch ahead as traders brace for inflation data. Yahoo! Asian shares increased on Tuesday, and the US dollar slumped to its lowest in 3 months on the back of investors' belief that the Federal Reserve has completed its rate hike cycle. The MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.39% and was looking at a nearly 7% gain for November, its strongest monthly performance since January. Flexibility in VCMI's carbon credit guidelines to unleash demand, investment. South China Morning Post. Companies may be allowed to purchase carbon credits to offset the carbon footprint of their supply chains, according to new guidance from the Voluntary Carbon Markets Integrity Initiative. The upgraded guidelines are designed to allow companies to close the gap between their Scope 3 greenhouse gas target emissions and their current emissions, provided they have already taken steps to reduce their emissions. The UK-based Voluntary Carbon Markets Integrity Initiative claims that the new guidance will unlock demand for carbon credits from companies unable to fully meet their targets but who are making progress. Squash star Asal targets more Hong Kong glory following lengthy ban. South China Morning Post. Mostafa Asal of Egypt, the defending champion of the Hong Kong Squash Open, has revealed that he watched reruns of his victory in last year's final to motivate himself during a recent 12-week ban. Asal, who is ranked third in the world, has had a troubled career marked by disciplinary issues. He sought advice from former world number 1 James Willstrop to help him manage his emotions and pressure during matches. Asal has returned to Hong Kong to defend his title, but admits that the pressure is high. Cathay favoring Airbus for widely watched freighter deal, sources. Reuters. Cathay Pacific is reportedly considering placing an order for around 6 Airbus A350 freighters as it looks to renew the oldest section of its fleet of dedicated 747 cargo jets. This decision marks a potential turnaround for Airbus, as Cathay Pacific had previously appeared to favor the competing Boeing 777-8F. The airline's decision is seen as a key test for both Airbus and Boeing, as Cathay operates passenger models of both aircraft manufacturers. Cathay Pacific is the world's 5th largest air freight carrier, and the competition has suggested an initial purchase of around half a dozen aircraft. That's all the news for today, folks. Let's do a quick recap of the highlights. Singapore's central bank chief predicts that private cryptocurrencies will eventually exit the monetary scene, leaving room for central bank digital currencies and stablecoins. In China, the property crisis is taking a toll on individuals, with many uncertain about the fate of their investments. Hong Kong stocks have fallen as concerns rise over corporate earnings amid China's economic slowdown. The dollar is on track for its worst month in a year as traders bet the Federal Reserve is almost done with its rate hiking cycle. Singapore's luxury real estate market faces scrutiny as a potential conduit for money laundering. The recent meeting between the US and China did not represent a thawing of relations, disappointing other countries like Japan. Hong Kong's home prices have dropped to their lowest level since 2017. And finally, a Hong Kong-based photographer is capturing the city's diverse wildlife species to promote conservation. Now, let's dig a little deeper into these stories. It seems that the future of cryptocurrencies is in question, as Singapore's central bank chief believes that private digital coins have failed the test of money. While they may offer quick profits, they struggle to maintain their value. This aligns with a broader trend we've seen, with more countries exploring the possibility of central bank digital currencies and well-regulated stablecoins. It will be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming years. Moving on to China's property crisis, the impact is being felt by individuals across the country. The troubles faced by developers, including Evergrande's default, have sent shockwaves through the property sector, leaving many buyers unable to move into their new homes and struggling to recover their deposits. This crisis not only affects individuals but also has broader implications for the Chinese economy and household wealth. It will be crucial to monitor how the government responds and what measures are taken to address the situation. In the world of finance, the dollar is experiencing a rough month, as traders speculate that the Federal Reserve is nearing the end of its rate hiking cycle. This has led to a drop in the dollar and gains in other currencies such as the yen and South Korean won. This shift in sentiment has also fueled a rally in the stock market, with Wall Street forecasters becoming more upbeat about the outlook for next year. It will be interesting to see if this trend continues and how it impacts global markets. Shifting gears to Singapore's luxury real estate market, it's facing scrutiny due to potential money laundering risks. A recent police bust resulted in the arrest of foreigners suspected of money laundering, shedding light on the risks associated with owning property in Sentosa Cove. This has further eroded sentiment in the luxury home market, which has already been impacted by increased taxes on foreign buyers. It's clear that authorities are cracking down on illicit activities, and this could have broader implications for the luxury real estate market in Singapore. Turning to international relations, the recent meeting between the US and China may not have represented a thawing of relations, but it did offer a glimmer of hope that competition and confrontation between the two countries can be managed. While this may disappoint countries like Japan, who were hoping for a more significant shift in the balance of power, it's important to recognize the complexities of international diplomacy. Balancing competing interests and avoiding conflict is no easy task. In Hong Kong, home prices continue to fall, reaching their lowest level since 2017. This comes as no surprise, given the ongoing property market slump and economic slowdown in China. It will be interesting to see if prices continue to decline and what impact this has on the overall economy. Lastly, let's take a moment to appreciate the beauty of nature. Wildlife photographer Lawrence Hilton is capturing Hong Kong's diverse wildlife species, reminding us that nature is not as scary as it may seem. Through his photographs, Hilton hopes to promote conservation and highlight the importance of coexisting with animals. It's a powerful reminder that even in the midst of a bustling city, there is still room for nature to thrive. That's all for today's news roundup. I hope you enjoyed the stories and found them informative. Now it's your turn to join the conversation. What are your thoughts on the future of cryptocurrencies? How do you think the property crisis in China will be resolved? And what impact do you think the US-China relationship will have on other countries like Japan? I look forward to hearing your thoughts and answering any questions you may have. Remember, stay curious and keep exploring the world around you. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.